We know our justice system has put a strain on our state. We failed to adequately fund alternatives to incarceration, especially for folks who need mental health services or substance abuse treatment. Our prisons have been overcrowded, which costs more of your tax dollars in the long run. And we haven't given folks enough resources or tools to be safe and successful when they re-enter our communities, from education to affordable housing to workforce training. And perhaps most importantly, we have yet to address the disproportionate impact the last more than 2 decades of laws have had on our communities of color. It's time to face the facts. We have got to change. And if we're going to bounce back from this pandemic, we have to get our priorities straight. We can't keep throwing your taxpayer dollars into a system that doesn't help our state or our people thrive. It's holding us back. And here's the deal. You know I'm a big believer in science. We can keep our communities safe by holding violent offenders accountable, saving money, and reforming our justice system all at the same time. Because in the 21st century, we can use science and evidence to help us make better decisions. And it starts with our kids. It's been years since the 2017 Wisconsin Act 185 was passed and the legislature made promises to close Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake. Many of those changes and promises have yet to be realized due to legislative inaction. By focusing only on physical buildings and not on holistic change throughout the system, Act 185 was always going to fall short. That's why in this budget, I'm going to propose that we truly overhaul our juvenile justice system by focusing on best practices and a community-based approach to facilities. We're once again proposing that our juvenile justice system treat youth under 18, with some limited exceptions, as kids, not adults. We are one of the only states in the nation that has not made this evidence-based change in ensuring that youth are treated as youth, and that needs to change now. And right now, there's no foundational training for how to interact with and engage justice-involved kids. So we're going to make sure that across our state, youth justice agencies have the training they need to help our kids be successful, from understanding adolescent brain development to best practices on engaging kids, to evidence-based practices for delinquency, to understanding the unique needs of girls and LGBTQ youth. We're also going to invest nearly $9 million in a pilot program to start increasing services in our communities so kids who are at moderate or high risk can get intensive, evidence-based treatment closer to home. Because we know that, we should be providing kids and families with as much support as we can to get on the right track in prioritizing investments in rehabilitation and treatment for our kids. That's why we're also going to change the way we sentence our youth to require that courts truly consider the youth's risk, treatment needs, and the severity of the offense. Our justice system should be about both accountability, but also about the opportunity for treatment and rehabilitation. And any meaningful reform of the juvenile justice system must include this approach. Finally, we're going to again propose to close Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake so that we can get our kids closer to home as soon as we can safely and responsibly can. And we're going to do it by eliminating Act 185's outdated 2-tier correctional system and creating smaller, community-based facilities across our state, and make sure that our kids get the same evidence-based treatment and behavioral support no matter what part of the state they're from. And when it comes to our adult justice system, we have work to do there too. We can save more tax dollars in the long run by investing in treatment and alternatives to incarceration. A study conducted by the Wisconsin Department of Justice found that by investing in state treatment and diversion, for every single dollar we invest in diversion programs, we save more than $8 in return. Expanding access to treatment and diversion isn't just the right thing to do for our people, it's the right thing to do for our pocketbooks too. That's why in our last budget, we increased the funding for the treatment alternatives and diversion programs to the highest funding level ever. And we're going to double down on this investment in this budget by providing an additional $15 million to expand this program. A decade-long study on race and prison sentencing in Wisconsin found that compared to their white counterparts of individuals convicted of felonies in Wisconsin, black men are 28% more likely to end up in prison. Hispanic men were 19% more likely. Native American men are 34% more likely to end up in prison. The last wholesale rewrite of Wisconsin's criminal code hasn't happened in more than a decade. So we're going to start by having a sentencing review council go through every section of our state's criminal code to focus on equity, rehabilitation, and evidence-based sentencing practices that will result in better outcomes and make this system fairer while keeping our communities safe. We're also going to expand the earned release program to include programs that are evidence-based to reduce recidivism, like education, work training, and treatment programs, so that when folks re-enter our communities, they have the tools they need to be successful. Reforming our justice system is long overdue, and it's part of our overall goal to ensure our state bounces back and better than before. I want to be clear, there's more to equity and justice than corrections and incarceration.